Hi, my name's Jeff Weath. I'm Lumu CTO. I'd like to give you a little brief background on me so you have some context for some of my statements when we're talking about the state of ransomware today. NSA came and got me straight out of college back before anyone knew who they were, including me. I thought they were NASA. I've been in and out of that world, in the artificial intelligence world. A little more recently, I was running Anheuser-Busch's global SOC in Bangalore, India. And then most recently, I was the CISO for an incident response group where we did over 100 incident responses in the last year alone. So what I want to talk to you today is about the vicious cycle of ransomware. This graphic and some others that you're going to see in the presentation is from Lumu's flashcard that we do annually. And I'll talk to you later about how you can download that to get more context on what we're talking about. But it's beyond reproach. It's obvious that ransomware has grown drastically over the last 4 years. To get to a root cause analysis of that, you find that there's a confluence of different things that have helped to grow that. It's a combination of how the victims are acting, how the business, the ransomware, the bad guys are acting, as well as how the insurance company is dealing with things. So what you have is the Russian business networks are running the ransomware like a real business. It's a consortium. They work it at the top. They've mechanized everything, and I'll give you some examples of that. They've mechanized the whole process, made it very professional, and business is good. You combine that with the fact that when the insurance companies got in, there was obviously a lot of money in selling cyber insurance. Their business process initially was to pay the ransom. We don't ever recommend you pay the ransom, but that was their deal. That was their easiest course of action. It hasn't worked out well for them, and they're not doing that anymore. It's getting harder to get insurance and whatnot as a result of it. But it's created rapid growth. So the victimized organizations were paying the ransom. That created demand. The organizations were more affected by the ransomware because there's growth in it. And then the ransom payers recovered. The people that paid the ransom were getting the data. Now, what I've seen, if you look at that business, that Russian business conglomerate at the top, when people were hit by the more sophisticated ransomwares, this is the Russian business types and stuff, they were more apt to get what it is they were paying for because that was good for business. All right. So the way that has worked with the Russian business groups, what they do is they control the top. They take the first action. They have the advanced persistent threats. They're in there. They're doing multiple ransomware deals, Contini, and I'll talk about that later, where they're ransoming you not only for, access to your systems and business continuity, but then they later ransom you for the data that they've extracted. But as they use that and they're done with that, they sell that as ransom as a service down to lesser criminals down the scale. What we found is the farther you get down the scale, the higher the probability is that you don't get your business decrypted, you don't get the data back and stuff. So we've seen that. We talked about a way that they've mechanized that. Earlier this year, there was an exploit that came out, a vulnerability that Microsoft published in their Microsoft Exchange. So as soon as they published that, the bad guys, this very sophisticated organization, went and worked overtime to reverse engineer that and quickly install backdoors in all those systems out across the globe. Now they mechanize that. They scan for all Exchange servers and put those backdoors in. So even though once the people went and patched those flaws, the back door was still there. I use the example. It's like you going in with a real estate agent and putting tape over the back door. They could come in a later time, at any later time, and do that. What they did was they installed a thing called the China Chopper. It's a script that they could run after the fact. So, and they worked those customers off at a value level. The higher value ones they worked off first and worked down the deal and did it. So it's a very extreme business model that you're dealing against. It's also not a fair fight. When people like me in Eastern Europe, they don't have 401k. So when they get a little older and start, being put out to pasture, they're going to put their wares out to the highest bidder. Well, the highest bidder of these organized crime groups. So the other thing we saw is if you got ransomware, there was a high probability you were going to get it again, because they were putting in back doors to sell it down. It made it more valuable. They sold it to the lesser criminals, so there's a higher probability that they're going to come back around and get you again. So from that, the state of ransomware, we can look and see this is a global phenomenon. What you can see from this graph is, it's everywhere. It's on all the continents except maybe Antarctica. And then, they're obviously going to the U.S. the most because they're following the money. That's where most of the money is. It's where the insurance companies were paying out the ransom. So, business is good. The FBI reported a 62% increase in ransomware incidents and a 20% increase in reported loss. Now, from a business standpoint, that means business grew at 62% and the margins grew at 20%. So business is very good. You can see why this is continually grows. So ransomware just doesn't come out of the blue. It's what we call the cyber kill chain. 90% of ransomware comes in through mail. We saw that with our incident response company. The other 5% comes in from open source, open ports, remote ports. Think the target hack through the HVAC where they came in through a maintenance port 3389 RDP or port 22 SSH. That kind of thing. But the majority of them come in through mail. People clicking on mails or credential stuffing. The intent there with the mail is to get that precursor malware in there so they can detonate it. Once they do that, that opens the door. I mentioned the China chopper on Hafnium. That was a precursor malware that was put in there. So what they're going to do is they're going to put that precursor malware in there. They're going to detonate it, and then they're going to go lateral. They're going to move throughout the network. What they're looking for is the crown jewels. If it's important to you, it's important to them because you'll pay for it, right? So that's what they're looking. They're looking to escalate their privileges, go throughout your network, spread out, find the backups, make sure that they can encrypt those when it's time to do that. Once they think they have everything in the network, or once they see you starting to recognize they're in the network, then they're going to detonate the ransomware, the encryption, and you're going to get the ransomware notice. And this is the bad point. So at Lumu, what we did was we went back and we looked at what were the precursors detected within our systems and our 2,400 customers over the last year, and we found overwhelmingly that Emotet was the biggest one. And I can tell you from the incident response deal that matches what we saw. Emotet deploys Rook and Conti. Conti is the dual ransomware effect. So basically what they're doing is they're going through and they're putting the encryption keys on there so that you can't continue business continuity, but they're also extracting data, and they're going to double ransom you. They're going to ransom you to get the keys to unlock your servers and backups, but then they're going to ransom you again not to release your data out onto the dark web. It could be embarrassing data. It could be data that's damaging to your reputation, whatever it is. They're going to hit you with a double ransom, which is double the amount of work or double the amount of money. And then you can see the others at a lesser extent, more rare. But with the Russian business network and the things we saw from the sophisticated actors, the Emotet and Rick and Conti were by far the largest ones. Okay, so who's concerned about ransomware? In our surveys, we found that only 30% of small businesses were concerned about ransomware. MSPs were much more. Let's talk about that. Well, part of the reason that the SMBs, there's two main reasons why the SMBs weren't that concerned about it. One is an old thought that, security by obscurity. That's no longer the case. I mentioned the mechanized version of what they did with Hafnium. They do that with everything. The scanning is mechanized. They're going to find you. There's no longer hiding. They're going to use the sophisticated tools to ferret out your vulnerabilities and get the things out of you. And they run it like a business. These ransoms aren't astronomically unreachable. They know from their studies, law of large numbers and everything else, roughly what kind of insurance you would have, roughly what you would pay. They understand your vertical market, what's important to you. I often ask customers, how long could you be down? How long before your customers go find other suppliers? How long did it take you to get those customers? Think about the gravity of that, even with a small business. It matters. So that was one thing. They thought, no one cared about them. No one were going to find them in small town America, whatever. That's no longer the case. The whole thing's mechanized. The other side of it, and this is why the MSPs are concerned, is that and who's an MSP in the room, right? Or who has an MSP in the room. The other reason they're not concerned is they think their MSPs are handling it. As an SMB, they don't understand the difference between rank and file IT and security. And when the MSPs go so far as to sell them touch the third rail and sell them that firewall, now they've just stepped into the security realm. You've helped to propagate that. That's why the MSPs are concerned, because as that IR group, it was the MSPs that were bringing me the IRs because their small customers were blaming them or expected them to help them get out of that situation. So that's why the MSPs are 84% concerned in this case, because they're being blamed for it. They're not necessarily being paid for it. So they need to understand it, and they need to, it's a business. So they need to be able to do that in a profitable model. And they need to impart that knowledge back to the SMBs to pay for that type of security deal. Because the reality is that 43% of cyber attacks are aimed at small business. It's big business. When you think in terms of volume, the number of, the majority of businesses in the U.S. are small businesses. It's the backbone of America. It's what, it's Main Street, USA for us. So, obviously they're attacking that because that's where the money is. So some of the things I covered in the ransomware flashcard, and I'm going to pause here a little bit so you can scan this, the code and get it. This will give you a deeper insight on what's going on in ransomware in a flashcard that we do at Lumu. So please scan that card. I call this call to action. Scan that code. Download that ransomware card. That's going to help you if you're a frontline security person, help you explain to your upper management what's going on, give you some context, put some reality behind it and help you make that argument. The next thing I want to do is we've done a ransomware risk assessment. If you can go to this code and take that quick questionnaire, it's going to give you a level of risk in terms of your probability of ransomware. So please go and take this questionnaire. That'll give you some sort of kind of evaluation or grade in terms of where you are in terms of risk of ransomware that you can also use for those arguments. So next, where do we go from here? All right, when it comes to ransomware, it's like cancer. I like to say, it's way easier to prevent it than to get rid of it once you have it. It's the same with, would you rather deal with a lizard or deal with a Komodo dragon? What I'm showing here is our threat radar. This is one of our customers. This was day one of the threat. As you can see, in the cyber kill chain, the adversary is just starting to spread out. He's just starting. He's just made entry into the network. At this point, he hasn't moved very far. He hasn't moved laterally. He's going after one contact or just a few contacts. So it's a very early stage in the deal. And, had there been automation, this would have been eradicated early. Unfortunately, the customer doesn't have automation. And in this case, this is what day 5 looks like. This is that lateral movement. So at this point, you're in a full-on dogfight, or in this case, you're slaying the dragon, which is no fun. Happy to report that they were still able to recover from this, but it took way more effort. There was way more stress, and to understand how it works with the adversary, once you start eradicating this, they know. Okay, so what they've been doing is they've been working in parallel, grabbing data, doing a number of things, seeing how far they can spread wide. In cyber, in incidents, time is money. So the longer they're in there, the more money it's going to cost you. The longer it takes you to get them out, the more money it's going to cost you. So in this case, once they started remediating it, obviously the bad guy is starting to escalate. Now they were able, with our help, to get in front of it before it got to a ransomware situation, but it was much closer. And from the incident response side, I've seen the threat hunters hand fighting with the bad guys once they realize that you're starting to eradicate them. They're going to start executing and take max value of what they've been able to impart in your network. So what are some strategies for efficient attack response? We've come up with these 5. First, you need real-time incident updates. You need that constant compromise assessment. What's going on in your network at machine speed? It needs to be in such a way that you can tell it. It's not an ocean of data. It needs to be apparent to you so that you can take the proper action or automate that action. You need to identify the top attacks impacting your organization. So what that means is you're going to have a number of different attacks, high and low level. You need to be able to understand the priority and the severity of those, and which ones you're going to react to first. Obviously, you want to take a high-low approach to how you address the attacks coming at you. You need an asset level attack visibility. It matters what's being attacked. I say, look, you want to segment your networks. You don't want your financial systems on the same networks as tellers. Tellers are people. People click on links. People are always the weakest links. So you need to understand what those assets are that are being attacked. That's going to tell you what the adversary is after, what they've discovered. Have they found your crown jewels? Is it time to act? So the fourth one is to enhance cyber defenses with factual data. What we mean by that, you need context around the attack. Once you understand the context around the attack, it's like a fingerprint with the adversaries. They use the same, what we call TTPs, techniques, tactics, and protocols. Once you understand that context, you're able to think ahead on the chessboard where they're going next, what they're going to do next, and get out in front of them. We use the MITRE attack methodology to do that in the incident response world, as well as on Lumu. We provide that to you with that context. So that helps you fend off that adversary and get out ahead of them. And finally, we recommend an automated attack response. If your response can work at machine speed, it's always going to be faster than the human. The bad guys know your work schedules. One, they're out of Eastern Europe half the time anyway, so their schedules are offset from yours anyway. But instant responses always come in at Friday at 4. You're on your way to happy hour or whatever. These things come in. That they know that they're making this the max inconvenience for you to get you ramped up, to get you panicked, to pay that ransom. So with an automatic attack response, you're working at machine speed to fend off those threats. So those are the things we recommend in that. So at Lumu, we believe that all organized can operate cybersecurity proficiently. We put it at a price to value point that the small business can afford it. We've made this available at the low end, at the high end. If you're low end, then we're there protecting you. If you're at the high end and you have a SIM, we're the front end of your SIM. Let us take the things out of the fight that your people that you pay to run a SIM, those high-end individuals, your brain surgeons, let them go do the brain surgery. Let them do the decryption of the packets to see what data loss was extracted. All those things that you bought a SIM for, let Lumu sit in the front and take the things that are obviously bad. Interaction with the adversary is never good, never ends well. So let us take it out of that fight and what you need to deal with. And let me show you how we do that. We do that through continuous compromise assessment. We intentionally look for compromise. We don't wonder if you're compromised. We assume you're compromised. And we sit on the other side of in an overarching way. We sit over your security architectures that you currently have to see what got through the gaps. What were the things that got through that either for some reason or another your current security systems didn't block? From the DoD world, we call that interlocking fields of fire. It's how no one gets through the gaps, right? And that's what we do at Lumu. We overarch over those systems and continually improve them. We implement continuous attack detection, and then we measure that effectiveness and provide feedback. In that realm, what we're doing is we're taking that feedback and putting that back into your security systems and automating the blocking of those bad actors. We do that through a number of ways. We have over 85 public sources that we pulled known bad actors out of. We're also canvassing our own customers. So every customer a sensor. So when they see bad, if it's new bad or whatever, it goes into those indicators of compromise. And we're constantly measuring that against the distance between the bad guys. So if a new domain, a new IP address shows up, then we're going to measure that against what's been seen in the past and do the artificial intelligence to say, yeah, while it's new, it's still bad. And when it's new bad, what we're going to do, and this is innovative, Lumu is the only one that does this. We store up to 2 years of your metadata that we've collected, and we're going to play that back in a recursive manner at machine speed when we find a new exploit. As soon as the key here is all attacks come in through the network. The only way the bad guy can monetize this is to come in through that network and command and control and do the things that they do. So when we see them, when they actually do that, and we identify them as a new indicator of compromise, we're going to, one, make that a known indicator of compromise, but then we're also going to play that back through your old data to see how long they've been in your network, how long and what did they touch. So this recursive way, it's brilliant in a way. It's what my threat actors do the first time we get on the ransomware. We immediately shut off the network and we go to find the source of the infection, patient zero. So Lumu is doing that at machine speed and going and eradicating that and putting that into your security system through automation to block that immediately. So metadata is the ultimate source of the truth. So I mentioned, we go through the metadata. Let me talk briefly about what we collect, why we collect it, and where we collect it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get your DNS or your DNS data. Anyone that's trying to communicate is going to resolve an address. We're going to see that. We look at that. That's how we figure out where it's coming from and whether it's bad or not. All right. So that's our first and easy indicator. Next, we're going to collect your net flows. That's going to tell us that east-west traffic. When they go lateral, that tells us what they did once they got in, where they went, and how they did it. All right. How they did it, relates to ports and protocols and things like that. But we get all that information from that net flow data. Third, we take your access logs from your firewalls and proxies. There's attacks that don't involve name resolution, right? I mentioned, port 3389 and SSH, they're just using straight IPs, fileless attacks, all those. One thing they have in common, they have to go to a location. So when we get those access logs, we can compare that against that. We're not just relying on the DNS. That's what I meant by that overarching support of what you have. Finally, a lot of companies put in, I mentioned 90% of attacks come in through email. So they have spam features. They have things that block the spam. They have things over there. Unfortunately, they don't analyze that data. What we want to get that spam box data from you. So because it's probably where they got into your network, what it tells us is, who they went after, what they got in, what they want, what their methods are. So we take that spam box and that adds further context to where they came in, what they were trying to do. Were they going after your CFO? Were they going after the financial group? What were their targets when they came in? Was it a targeted attack? Is this, what I call a drift net attack, where they were just spamming everyone and seeing who would click the link? And once someone clicked the link, then that was their opportunity to move in. Or were you specifically targeted? And what that tells you is they've done the recon on you. They've gone out in public sources, LinkedIn, everything, and they've narrowed down the search. Remember, they run this like a business. I said they've narrowed down the search and focused their attack for maximum effect. So that's some of the insight we get out of the spam box. All right, so we talk about continuous improvement and the overarching, how we overarch over your security systems. And our CEO is a former electrical engineer, so you can kind of see the diode feature in here. But what that means is you have existing security systems. We work for and on the other side of them. We're evaluating their compromise level of what gets through those systems, and at machine speed, providing a feedback loop back into those systems to orchestrate and automate the blocking of the new attacks, or even the old attacks that got through. We call that compromise level, and that constant measurement of that compromise level. We're constantly improving this loop. So eventually that's tightening that noose over, narrowing that hole for which those adversaries can go through. In the military parlance, we're doing a pincer move. We're moving them into an area they can't move very far, and they're easy to spot. That's the signal to noise ratio. As this moves down, whenever they move through there, the fact that they're coming out at you is going to spike up and be very obvious that it's happening. So this is a self-healing network that does it, constantly hardens you. And it's done at a price per point value to support the small business up through the enterprise. So with that, the next step, at Lumu, we do offer you a free account. I'll let you scan this code. Scan this code, open a free account, what I call kick the tires, learn the knobology, see what it is we offer. That'll give you an insight of what the value of Lumu is. Please take it out and, take it for a spin. Understand, how easy it is to use, how easy it is to spot the bad guy with this. and then contact us, and we'd be happy to work for you. So I appreciate your time today. Please visit us in the virtual booth. We'll ask any questions you have. We'll ask any questions about Lumu. Ask any questions about my background in terms of incident response and my experience there. Please come by and see us, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we see you at Lumu. And keep up the good fight, and please don't pay those ransomwares. Thank you very much.